Hello, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most chilling crime scenes you'll ever hear about. A place where the very floor seems to remember the violence, where every drop of blood has a story, and where the investigators found that what was tried to be hidden screamed the loudest. We're going to examine the case behind the title, Blood on the Floor, what the crime scene tried to hide. From the moment the first officer stepped across the threshold, there was an indescribable heaviness in the air. It wasn't just the blood, though there was plenty. It was how the room felt, as if something unspeakable had unfolded, and someone had tried very hard to erase the truth. The floor told a story, and when you know how to read it, you can see the lies. The crime scene was an office, a place we associate with order, professional calm, a routine. Instead, it was one of the bloodiest crime scenes seen by many involved. The victim, Richard Oland, was discovered face down in a pool of his own blood in his office late on the night of July 6, 2011. The damage was savage. More than 40 wounds to his hands, neck, and head, with 6 defensive wounds indicating he had tried to protect himself. The blood was everywhere, on the walls, on the desk, on the computer, spilled onto the chair, seeped through 3 layers of flooring, and even penetrated the ceiling of the office below. So why did I pick this case for our topic today? Because the scene teaches us something powerful about what a crime scene tried to hide, and how it couldn't hide in spite of every attempt. It underscores how forensic science reads the floor, the splatter, the pool, even the absence of stains that you'd expect. It shows us how the perpetrator's actions, the victim's struggles, and the place itself all leave behind something more than bodies and questions. They leave clues. Let's walk through the timeline. On July 6, a little after 5:30 p.m., Richard's last keystroke on his computer was recorded at 5:39 p.m. His iPhone, the only item missing from his office, next communicated at 6:44 p.m. The next morning, his personal assistant arrived at his office and found him lying face down in a huge pool of blood. The scene was described by investigators as one of the bloodiest they'd seen. Think for a moment, a professional environment with records and files, computers and chairs. It's not the first setting you assume for a brutal homicide. Yet here the walls were spattered. The skull was cracked like an eggshell, and brain matter was present on his back. One of the more disturbing bits, the blood didn't just stay on or around the body, it had soaked through to floors beneath. That tells us that the violence was so intense and prolonged it saturated surfaces, or that movement post-event allowed for blood to pool and seep. But even more significant, forensic analysts pointed out that although the pool of blood was extensive, there were very few transfer stains. That means fewer of the typical footprints or shoe marks you might expect in a struggle scenario. Only one footprint was noted, unanswered, and never connected to a suspect. The attacker may have tried to step lightly, or perhaps the scene was cleaned in part, or maybe the attack was so fast and brutal that footprints didn't form the usual way. The heavy pooling suggests the victim may have collapsed and bled out where he lay, or was forcibly moved. What does the floor tell us? It tells us violence occurred a great deal, but it also hints at an attempt at concealment. If you find fewer footprints but lots of pooling, it may mean the victim died there and the attacker left without tracking, or the attacker stood still for a moment or even hurried out. It may also hint at staging after the fact. The fact the blood soaked through 3 layers of flooring suggests it was undisturbed for some period of time. That raises questions. Did someone come after the attack and clean certain surfaces but not the floor? Did they assume the floor would absorb and hide the evidence? Did they fail to respect or understand how blood behaves? Let's pause and consider blood spatter science. Blood does not randomly end up where it wants. It follows physics. If someone is attacked standing, falling, and then moving across a floor, you'll see spatter on walls at certain heights, directional flows, drip patterns, pooling where gravity allows. Investigators found dripping on the walls and ceiling in this case. They found that the skull was so severely damaged that the victim was alive through most of the attack, meaning his body was bleeding throughout and was likely moving, perhaps crawling, before coming to rest. Now, what does that mean for us telling the story? It means this wasn't a quick, clean killing. It wasn't a single shot fired with a quiet exit. It was an assault. It was a confrontation. Someone expected to meet the victim, or knew him, or carried out the act in a way where removal of evidence was attempted yet failed. Forensic science stepped in and refused to let the floor's story be hidden. The portion that says what the crime scene tried to hide comes into sharper focus when you consider the contradictions: extreme blood but limited transfer stains, pooling and seepage but minimal footprints, a missing iPhone which invites motive speculation, but no clear signs of struggle beyond the trauma to the victim. Someone may have wanted us to believe this was an isolated incident, but the floor and walls said otherwise. It was messy, frantic, prolonged. You may ask, why does this matter for a channel like yours? Because your audience doesn't just want to hear that something happened. They want why and how. They want to see the pieces and understand that even what looks blank, a floor that seems undisturbed, is loud when you know how to listen. And you'll get views when you show them the hidden story, the forensic breadcrumbs, the patterns the perpetrator didn't know would betray them. Returning to the narrative, after the discovery, investigators did their work. They cataloged hair, fiber samples, bone fragments. They mapped the blood spatter. They examined the trajectory, the ceiling penetration. They traced the iPhone signal. The floor under layers of carpets bore the stain that not only said violence, but said this ended here. One forensic expert said, the person who created these injuries would have significant bloodstains / spatter on their person, and would be expected to transfer bloodstains to the surfaces of other objects the person came in contact with. The absence of those expected marks becomes suspicious itself. Picture that floor. Not a single chair or file cabinet moved from the normal pattern. No overturned furniture, which suggests either the victim was attacked sitting or reclining, or the assailant cleaned up after. But the pool of blood soaked into the carpet, into the floorboards, into the ceiling below. That tells us someone left everything else in place. Maybe the killer counted on inertia, on carpet hiding it, on the floor being ignored. But forensic experts didn't ignore it. What did the killer hope would happen? Perhaps that the scene would be chalked up to a robbery gone wrong, or natural death misinterpreted. Maybe they counted on people avoiding the floor, just a very bad murder, just blood spilled during the assault. They might have cleaned the chair, desk, phone, maybe even the victim's body position moved slightly. But they left the floor because they thought it would hide itself. They underestimated how investigation works today. Let's talk motive just briefly. Without heading into speculation that crosses ethical lines, we do know an iPhone went missing. The victim had last communications recorded, and the brutal nature suggests anger, familiarity, or betrayal rather than random violence. The more personal the murder, often the messier the scene. The more professional the murder, the cleaner it is. This falls mid-range. Personal motive, but executed in a place of business, with minimal signs of forced entry or disturbance beyond the trauma. That is a piece of what the floor feared we'd forget. That this might have been done by someone the victim knew, someone comfortable, someone expecting to be left alone. For your channel, this is gold. People latch onto the phrase blood on the floor because it conjures raw horror. But your value add is unpacking what that blood on the floor means, what the floor signals, what the lack of footprints signals, what the seepage to the level below signals. Viewers come for shocking images, but they stay for insight. And you can give them insight. Show them how forensic patterns speak, how hiding attempts backfire, how evidence works when you treat the scene as a text to be read. A key takeaway you can emphasize. In crimes like this, the floor doesn't lie, it waits, it absorbs, it drips, it tells when walls are silent, it covers scars, but the stains remain. And investigators who know to look at the pooling and the drip, the undisturbed furniture and the lack of footprints, will see the truth. And that is what this crime scene tried to hide, but couldn't. Now, before I wrap up, think about your style and what you can include to make this compelling on YouTube. A short animated diagram of the pool of blood and floor seepage, a reference to how the ceiling below was impacted, quotes from forensic witnesses about one of the bloodiest scenes. Engage your audience, ask them what they believe happened, pause before revealing the floor's secret, build suspense. Don't just dump the facts, let the floor speak. Lead into your call to action. Invite them to subscribe because you'll unveil more stories of crime scenes whose silence speaks volumes. In closing, the title we picked works because it emphasizes the irony. The crime scene tried to hide something but ended up screaming it. The floor was the mute witness that refused to remain silent. The blood on the floor wasn't just a puddle, it was a message. And in cases like this, every investigator, every viewer, every truth seeker must listen to what the floor is saying. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as haunting and revealing as I did, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next chapter of Hidden Clues and Silent Witnesses is coming soon.